Hey there, Russ here. Welcome back to the shop. Today I want to talk about being self-quarantined. Today is day 31. Been one full month. I'm a few days ahead of some people. Some people are pretty close, but I think the lockdown looks like it's starting to work. Keep our fingers crossed that it does. Um, but I have made a couple of trips out, and I'll tell you real quick. I made a trip to pick up groceries one time from my son, and both you-know-who and I went together. That's one of the things we're trying to do is have a rule that if one of us goes out during this quarantine, the other one goes with them. So we stay together, even if we're in the vehicle out doing something. So we went there and picked up groceries for 1 week of shopping, well, really 2 weeks of shopping's worth that we bought. And he went and got the groceries, and then the next morning I went out and he put them on his front porch, and I came home. And again, I was very careful about how I handle everything and washed what needed to be washed, things like that. And I may touch on that here in a few minutes. I'm not sure. We'll see where this rambling goes. I also went to a drive-through right here in town for drugs for you-know-who, and I just went by myself. I was gone 10 minutes, used gloves, washed my credit card when I got done. Everything that I get from outside of these walls that isn't already here, when something comes in, one or two things happens. Either it gets washed, obviously under the procedures of what is recommended, or I put it into quarantine. So when I took for example, when I brought those prescription home, it went into a room where we're going to start keeping these things. Gets put on a spot. I put a little tag on it with the date, and it sits there for at least 2 days. Nobody touches it. Nobody goes around it. And then then every now and then we will go in there, whatever we pick up, and check the dates on things, and we know whether or not we can take it out of the room. So that's how it kind of quarantine lasts up. I don't want to have to take open boxes outside and wash everything as it comes in and all that. I'm just going to quarantine it, and then it should be okay. Now, maybe that's wrong, and if it is, I would love to hear somebody's opinion of it. But I think that works so that I don't have to wash everything. Now, as far as groceries, I do handle those different. I bring them in with the sacks, again, with gloves on and everything. I put them in the sink, and we open that up. And she carefully gets things out one at a time. We don't wash the packaging of the food and stuff. And I could get in a long story, but we're not going to. I believe that is also pretty much safe. And there is no documentation out there. They said that nobody's been caught it from grocery shopping. So I think that's okay that I do that. But the bags are another story. I do make sure I do handle them. And then I take them all up. And they either go into quarantine if she wants a few bags. If she doesn't, then they go into the recycle bin, and I'm done with them. I don't try to store them or anything necessarily unless she really wants them. But they are disposed of or quarantined, one or the other. So that's how I do the groceries. And that all has worked out pretty good. Other than that, it's been either my son or this friend of mine that has done the shopping for me. So the other thing I want to talk about is social distancing versus quarantine, because I've been doing this for a month now. I'm obviously going to do it to the end of this month at a minimum. And then I may start looking at the idea of social distancing instead of self-quarantine. And I could go all day and all long just talk about the definition of those two. There's a fine line. But basically, I may loosen up and I may actually go into stores, probably mostly at the time periods when senior citizens go in, which would reduce my chances of catching something. Also, there is more cases here in Wisconsin. If I go to here in Kenosha County, we have a lot more cases, although there's very few. I think 22 deaths, 700 or 800 infections is all we have in this county. The county to the west of me has had no deaths and has had 30 in contaminations. So if I'm going to go shopping, guess where I'm going to go? I'm going to go to the smaller town at this point to do my grocery shopping, because they have a Walmart, they have a big stores. You can get pretty much anything there that I could get in Kenosha. And the only time I go out is when it's something that I can't get through the mail or through delivery. And so if I do go out and social distance instead of self quarantine, it'll be only during the summer months. And I think by next fall, we'll see where we're really at with this whole thing, because testing can make a huge difference as to whether or not I have to actually fully self-quarantine. Because if they have cases break out in New York, but they're testing all over and there's no breakouts here in this area, I don't have to completely self-quarantine. But I will still probably practice social distancing. And if you don't know the difference between those two terms, I'm not going to take the time to explain it here. We can talk about that separately if you really want to. But I'm hoping this is more than temporary this summer when I go into social distancing instead. And we'll just have to see. By next spring is when they'll finally have a vaccine. So by then is when I will start breathing easy and I won't have to worry about quarantining myself at all. Because I'll take the vaccination and I don't have to worry about the virus. But right now, probably next winter, I'm going to have the same problem I do this winter. During that season, I'm probably going to, if that virus shows up anywhere near, I have to probably go into self-quarantine at that point. So I'm being flexible about it, I think. We'll just have to play this as watch what goes on. I do have several maps I've been looking at on the internet, which is interesting because I can break it down by states. I can break it down by county. I can even break it down I think you can break it down to cities if you want to research it that much. But I found a couple of sites that I like that give me the stats of where they are. And I've been trying to track, especially locally, the north end of Illinois and the south end of Wisconsin. I'm really paying attention to any of the contaminations versus the deaths, mainly the contaminations, because if the virus is around here, I want to know it. The number of people dying has nothing to do with how many people are contaminated. So I really am paying attention to just the number of contaminations. And when that dies off and it's not in this area at all, I'll feel much better about being able to go out. But that all remains to be seen. I think this fall things will be so much better than here. We were hit blindsided this year and didn't even really figure out the gravity of what we were dealing with here, probably until March. And so it was a pretty fast moving train, but it was still slow moving as opposed to like a hurricane or a flood or an earthquake. So this has been quite a new experience, I think, for all Americans and everybody around the world. I know that Europe is having a lot of the same type of issues that we have had, and in some places even worse than us, and in other places than, I think that there is no one place that's really been not having serious problems, all in all, at least potentially. So I'm really optimistic that we're going to have this under control, though, by next season. And I think that'll be much better when the vaccination gets here. So the other thing I want to talk about, I think, real quick is I want to go back and talk, and then I promise we'll be done rambling. Yeah, right. About how I'm really dealing with products coming to my house. If I bring things in right now while I'm in quarantine, once I social distance, I won't have to worry so much about this. But right now, being in self-quarantine, anything that comes into the house, I handle it one of two ways. And so I thought I'd stress that one thing. Because trying to wash everything, open packages outside and pull packages out and wash them, and I decided the easiest way to handle it is, one thing that we have learned about the virus is that it has a very short life expectancy when you don't get in contact with it. So when it's on a surface, like even cardboard, 2 days seems to be the magic number, that as long as it's been 2 days, that virus is dead. And so what I've been doing is either washing what I bring in through that doorway, or it goes into quarantine for at least 2 days. I have a special area. I put my stuff. I put tags on it for the date of when it went into quarantine, and it'll just sit there for at least 2 days. So if it's something that I have to have now, or it's something that I have to really work with, or eat, then obviously that it's going to get washed if it needs to be, if it falls under the criteria of washing it. So I also will say I do not wash all the boxes and everything that the groceries come. I feel like right now the procedure is everybody's wearing gloves out there. When they take them out of the carton and put them on the shelf, they're wearing gloves. The cashier is wearing gloves. And so the odds of that having any virus, I think, are almost nil. And according to what I've been hearing on the news, there has been no contaminations from touching food. So I'm not too worried about the food, but the bags I treat very cautiously. And those I will open up in the sink, and she takes them out, and that what we need to wash, we can wash it when we're done there. I take those bags and dispose of them or put them in quarantine, and we clean up the area. And that's how we kind of protect ourselves from anything coming in. So I don't know what your plan is. One other thing, again, whenever we go on field trips, like we did when we went to get those groceries for my son, or when we went to pick up a prescription together, we decided that anything like that we will do together, because that way if something goes wrong with the car, we'll be together to try to decide what to do and everything. And we do carry masks and rubber gloves in the vehicle, plus I have them by the doorways, the rubber gloves, so that I can have them at a second's notice if I decide I better put a pair on to do what I'm going to do. So you might want to be prepared that way. But I think that's all the hints I got that so far where I'm at. Things are going pretty good. I'm still figuring out things as we go. Like I told you, I hope this was pretty clear on all those things. I hope this helps you if you're social distancing or self-quarantining. I hope some of these little hints might help you to think about where to get your groceries. Is it better to go to the big town or the small town? What should I keep gloves by the front door? Just the little things like that. I hope you got some hints. Anyway, comments, ideas, leave them below. Not only am I interested, but I guarantee you that most of my viewers really probably want to hear about that too. So they are appreciated on this. If you learned something here and you like this video, hit that like button. It lets me know that I'm doing the right thing here, that I'm not just spewing alone. Anyway, most importantly, come back again because I'm nowhere near done. Thanks. Hey, you be safe, and we'll see you guys all soon.